Hey guys, tonight we're going to peel back the layers on a family name that whispers through the halls of history. A name synonymous with unimaginable wealth, secret power, and the kind of influence that fuels 1,000 conspiracy theories. The awful legacy of the Rothschild family. Imagine yourself stepping back into the narrow, crowded streets of 18th century Frankfurt. Not into a lavish palace, but into the confines of a bustling, often harsh, Jewish ghetto. You're not just observing, you're feeling the grit of cobblestones underfoot, smelling the damp wood and the faint scent of old money, even before it was truly vast. This isn't your usual tale of kings and queens. It's the story of how a single, determined family carved out an empire, not with armies, but with ledgers, loans, and an iron will. Honestly, if you were living in the ghettos of Europe back then, you probably wouldn't survive the first wave of discrimination, let alone build a global financial powerhouse. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in the cramped, walled-off confines of the Judengasse, the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt, Germany. In the mid-18th century, this isn't a place of luxury or even comfort. It's a densely populated, regulated quarter where Jewish families were forced to live. Subject to curfews, special taxes, and numerous restrictions on their lives and professions. Yet, within these limitations, ingenuity often thrived. Here, you witness the humble beginnings of the Rothschild family. Specifically with Mayer Amschel Rothschild. He's not born into wealth or privilege. His family are coin dealers and money changers, a trade often open to Jews when many others were not. You see him learning the intricacies of currency, the subtle shifts in value, the art of the deal, right there in his small, unassuming shop with its distinctive red shield. Or Rothschild, hanging outside. Mayer Amschel is a quick study, a shrewd businessman with an extraordinary memory for numbers and faces. He doesn't just exchange coins, he develops a keen understanding of the nascent financial markets. You observe him dealing in antique coins, securing a reputation for honesty and expertise. This seemingly niche hobby becomes his entry point into the world of aristocracy. He begins to cultivate relationships with wealthy collectors, princes, and even royalty, transcending the rigid social barriers of the ghetto through his specialized knowledge and reliability. It's like watching a quiet, unassuming shop owner slowly, meticulously, build a hidden ladder to the highest echelons of power. His big break comes when he catches the attention of Prince William the Frane of Hesse-Kassel, one of the wealthiest rulers in Europe. Prince William has inherited an enormous fortune from his father, largely amassed by renting out Hessian soldiers as mercenaries, a brutal practice in itself, often known as soldier trading to other European powers, particularly Britain during the American Revolutionary War. You see Mayer Amschel slowly, carefully, become a trusted agent for the prince, handling his complex financial transactions, managing his investments, and discreetly moving his vast sums of money across borders. This relationship is a cornerstone of the Rothschilds' early success, providing them with invaluable experience in large scale, international finance, and, crucially, access to significant capital. The prince's need for a discreet and reliable banker becomes even more pronounced during the Napoleonic Wars, as Napoleon's armies sweep across Europe in the early 19th century. Prince William is forced to flee, leaving his considerable fortune in Mayer Amschel's hands. You feel the immense trust placed in Rothschild, a seemingly ordinary merchant, to safeguard one of Europe's largest private fortunes amidst the chaos of war. Mayer Amschel, demonstrating extraordinary loyalty and cunning, manages to hide, invest, and skillfully protect the prince's assets from Napoleon's grasp. This act of safeguarding the prince's fortune not only earns him immense gratitude, but also provides the Rothschilds with a significant capital base from which to expand their own operations. It's like being handed the keys to a vast treasure chest in the middle of a war zone and successfully keeping it secret. This period of the Napoleonic Wars is where the Rothschilds truly begin to distinguish themselves. You observe Mayer Amschel's brilliant and somewhat awful strategic genius. He doesn't just manage money, he understands the vital role of information and speed. In a world where communication is slow and unreliable, the Rothschilds establish their own vast, rapid network of couriers, pigeons, and intelligence gatherers. They get news of battles, political upheavals, and economic shifts faster than anyone else, including governments. You feel the thrill of this competitive edge, the power that comes from knowing things before anyone else. This intelligence advantage allows them to make incredibly shrewd and timely investments, often buying or selling government bonds based on advanced knowledge of wartime outcomes or peace treaties, a particularly awful legacy of this period. Though a driving force behind their success is their willingness to finance all sides of a conflict. While this is a common practice among bankers throughout history, the sheer scale and effectiveness with which the Rothschilds did it, even while officially backing one side, raises ethical questions. You see them lending money to the British, who are fighting Napoleon, while simultaneously facilitating covert financial transactions that might indirectly benefit those who are fighting against the British. Their allegiance is, first and foremost, to profit. Not necessarily to any particular nation or ideology, this financial pragmatism, while immensely successful, contributed to the later accusations of shadowy, self-serving manipulation. Historians still debate whether this practice was merely a pragmatic business decision in a chaotic era, or if it actively prolonged conflicts for their own financial gain. Mayer Amschel's vision extends beyond himself. He formulates a revolutionary plan for dynastic power. He sends his 5 sons to establish independent banking houses in key European financial centers. This is his masterstroke, creating a decentralized yet incredibly cohesive global financial network. You see the 5 arrows, as they would later be symbolized, fanning out across the continent. Amschel Mayer Rothschild remains in Frankfurt, overseeing the original house. Salomon Mayer Rothschild establishes the branch in Vienna, Austria. Nathan Mayer Rothschild settles in London, England, arguably becoming the most powerful of the 5. Karl Mayer Rothschild opens a bank in Naples, Italy. James Mayer Rothschild founds the branch in Paris, France. This innovative strategy, where brothers work in close collaboration, sharing information, pooling resources, and coordinating their financial operations, gives them an unprecedented advantage. You feel the strength of this familial bond, the unwavering loyalty that fuels their collective success. They are truly a family business on a grand, international scale, bound by blood and a shared ambition to dominate the financial world. The early rise of the Rothschilds from the Frankfurt ghetto is a story of astounding entrepreneurial genius, resilience in the face of discrimination, and an uncanny ability to exploit the chaos of a revolutionary era. Mayer Amschel's vision, coupled with his son's execution, laid the groundwork for an unparalleled financial empire. However, the awful legacy begins right here, a foundation built on financial pragmatism that often transcended national loyalties, the secretive accumulation of information, and a willingness to profit from the very conflicts that devastated Europe. This discreet, yet immensely powerful start sets the stage for the controversies and conspiracy theories that would dog the Rothschild name for centuries to come. You now find yourself directly within the heart of the burgeoning Rothschild financial empire, observing how Mayer Amschel's 5 sons, often referred to as the 5 arrows, execute their father's ingenious master plan. This isn't just about establishing banks. It's about weaving an unprecedented transnational network of finance that will give them unparalleled influence over the economic and political landscape of 19th century Europe. You feel the profound ambition and relentless work ethic that drives these brothers, pushing them to redefine what a banking house could achieve. The most prominent of the brothers, and arguably the driving force behind the family's meteoric rise, is Nathan Mayer Rothschild. Based in London, you witness his extraordinary acumen in the cutthroat world of British finance. He begins by trading textiles, then moves swiftly into currency exchange and government bonds. You observe his legendary ability to predict market movements, to sense the slightest shift in political winds or wartime fortunes, and to make audacious, yet brilliantly calculated, investments. He is known for his lightning-fast decisions and his willingness to take massive risks. Backed by an almost uncanny intuition, it's like watching a financial wizard conjure fortunes out of thin air. But it's all based on rigorous calculation and privileged information. The core of their success, however, lies in their unbreakable family bond and their unparalleled communication network. You recall Meyer Amschel's vision of his sons fanning out across Europe. Now you see it in action. Nathan in London, James in Paris, Salomon in Vienna, Karl in Naples, and Amschel in Frankfurt. Each brother operates an independent bank, yet they are constantly in communication, sharing vital information, coordinating loans, and pooling their immense capital. They develop their own private courier service, faster and more reliable than any government's. Using a complex system of relays and codes, you feel the pulse of this information flow. The power that comes from knowing key developments, battle outcomes, political upheavals, diplomatic breakthroughs, hours, sometimes days, before official channels. This intelligence advantage is an awful legacy in itself, allowing them to consistently outmaneuver their rivals and make enormous profits based on superior foresight. This period is dominated by the Napoleonic Wars, a chaotic crucible that provides the perfect storm for the Rothschilds to truly flourish. You observe them masterfully navigating this immense conflict, acting as crucial financial intermediaries for various European governments. Their loyalty, as you sensed earlier, is primarily to their ledgers. They don't pick ideological sides, they follow the money. You see them lending vast sums to Britain and its allies to fund their war efforts against Napoleon, facilitating the movement of specie gold and silver across war-torn Europe. At the same time, they subtly engage in transactions that could be seen as benefiting the other side, or at least ensuring their own financial security regardless of the victor. This ability to maintain relationships and conduct business with opposing factions, often simultaneously, makes them indispensable to all. It's like watching a financial octopus with tentacles reaching into every warring capital, calmly raking in profits from the chaos. Their most famous and most controversial moment during the Napoleonic Wars comes with the financing of Wellington's army in Spain. You witness Nathan Mayer Rothschild undertaking the monumental task of transferring huge sums of money from the British government in London to Wellington's troops on the Iberian Peninsula. This wasn't a simple bank transfer. It involved complex, high-risk operations, often smuggling gold through enemy lines, leveraging their network of agents and their unparalleled reputation for reliability. Wellington himself attested to their crucial role, stating that without the Rothschilds, his army could not have functioned. You feel the immense pressure and the daring involved in these operations, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible in wartime finance. The sheer scale of their wartime operations is mind-boggling. They are not merely bankers, they are financiers, currency traders, bond brokers, and intelligence gatherers all rolled into one. You see them buying and selling government bonds, speculating on the outcome of battles, and profiting immensely from fluctuations in exchange rates caused by the constant warfare. Their ability to move vast sums of money rapidly and secretly across borders gives them a unique competitive edge. This becomes an awful legacy because it solidified the perception that they profited directly from human suffering, leading to accusations of war, profiteering, and manipulation. Even if their actions were simply shrewd business in a brutal environment, and intriguing and often misconstrued. Detail of their early success involves the concept of government bonds. Before the Rothschilds, governments struggled to raise large sums for wars or infrastructure projects. The Rothschilds revolutionized this by creating a highly efficient market for government bonds, making it easier for states to borrow money quickly. This financial innovation, while massively profitable for them, also enabled governments to wage larger, more protracted wars, fundamentally changing the scale of conflict in Europe. It's like they invented a super efficient credit card for nations, making it easier to go on very expensive shopping sprees for cannons and armies. The most enduring and dramatic story of their wartime exploits culminates with the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815. This is where Nathan Mayer Rothschild's legendary intelligence network and audacious market manipulation supposedly come into play. You feel the immense tension and anxiety across Europe as the fate of Napoleon's final stand hangs in the balance. Nathan Rothschild, positioned in London, has agents on the battlefield waiting for the outcome. According to the famous and heavily debated legend, Nathan receives news of Wellington's decisive victory at Waterloo hours before the British government does. You witness him, armed with this exclusive information, subtly begin to sell British government bonds on the London Stock Exchange, creating a false impression that Britain had lost the battle. The market panics, assuming the news is bad, and bond prices plummet. Then, at the opportune moment, Nathan discreetly buys up a massive quantity of these cheap bonds. Knowing their value is about to skyrocket when the official news of victory breaks, you feel the sheer audacity of this move, the chilling calculated risk involved in such a manipulation. When the official news arrives, the bond prices indeed soar, and Nathan Rothschild makes an absolutely staggering fortune. Reportedly one of the largest single gains in financial history, this Waterloo scoop is an awful legacy because, regardless of its precise historical accuracy, many historians argue the story is exaggerated. Though Nathan certainly profited massively from his early knowledge, it firmly cemented the image of the Rothschilds as cunning, secretive manipulators who would stop at nothing to gain an advantage, even exploiting national tragedy for personal gain. It fed into the growing anti-Semitic stereotypes of Jews as shadowy, avaricious figures controlling global finance. Historians still debate the exact details and scale of Nathan Rothschild's actions during the Waterloo period, with some arguing the story is more legend than fact, while others maintain that the core narrative of early information leading to massive profit is undeniably true. By the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the Rothschild family has emerged not just wealthy, but as the preeminent financial power in Europe. They have built an unparalleled transnational banking empire, founded on a revolutionary communication network, shrewd financial innovation, and a willingness to profit from the chaos of war. This period defines their core awful legacy, the public perception of a family too powerful, too secretive, and too willing to put profit above all else, laying the groundwork for centuries of fascination, envy, and virulent conspiracy theories. You now delve into the period immediately following the Napoleonic Wars, a time when the Rothschilds, having amassed unprecedented wealth and influence, cement their position as the undisputed masters of European finance. This era is characterized by their strategic investments in the burgeoning industries of the 19th century and their pivotal, though sometimes controversial, role in shaping the economic landscape of a continent recovering from decades of conflict. You feel the shifting gears of the Industrial Revolution, and the Rothschilds are right there, greasing the wheels with vast sums of capital, with the return of peace. Europe faced the monumental task of rebuilding and financing its new industrial future. Governments needed stable loans to manage national debts, fund infrastructure projects, and support emerging industries. This is where the Rothschilds, with their immense capital reserves and unparalleled international network, stepped in. You observed them becoming the primary lenders to European monarchies, issuing massive government bonds that stabilized economies and funded ambitious national projects. They weren't just bankers, they were, in essence, the central bank of Europe, a private entity wielding power that often rivaled that of states. Their approach to lending was a mix of shrewd calculation and a willingness to take on monumental risks that others shied away from. You see them financing not just the victor of the Napoleonic Wars, Britain, but also the defeated powers, like France, helping them pay war indemnities and rebuild their economies. This pragmatic approach, while immensely profitable, continued to fuel the perception that they were detached from national loyalties, serving only their own financial interests. This awful legacy of perceived opportunism, of profiting from the misery of war and the scramble for recovery, continued to dog their reputation. It's like watching someone sell shovels to both sides of a gold rush, then offering loans to buy more shovels, ensuring they always come out on top. One of the most significant areas of Rothschild investment was in infrastructure, particularly the rapidly expanding railway networks across Europe. You witnessed the explosion of the railway mania in the mid-19th century, and the Rothschilds are at the forefront, financing massive railway lines in France, Belgium, Austria, and beyond. This wasn't just a profitable venture, it was a strategic one. Railways revolutionized transportation and communication, integrating economies and facilitating the movement of goods and people. By controlling the financing of these vital arteries, the Rothschilds exerted immense influence over the very backbone of modern industrial development. You feel the ground vibrate with the thundering of new trains. Knowing that Rothschild money helped lay those tracks, they also diversified their investments into other key industries. You see them pouring capital into coal mines, ironworks, and later, telegraph companies. They understood that the future of Europe lay in industrialization, and they positioned themselves to profit from every facet of this transformation. Their vast network allowed them to identify emerging opportunities, coordinate large-scale investments across national borders, and leverage their influence to secure favorable concessions from governments. This strategic foresight and willingness to invest in large, transformative projects set them apart from traditional bankers. An intriguing and somewhat awful detail about their extensive railway investments is how it further strengthened their already legendary information network. Before telegraphs were widespread, the Rothschilds often used their own railway lines and a system of fast horse-drawn carriages and pigeon post to transmit financial and political intelligence faster than anyone else. This gave them an unparalleled advantage in speculating on markets, knowing the political climate of a region, or even the success of a crop harvest. Before their competitors is like having your own private, super fast internet when everyone else is still using carrier pigeons. Despite their economic contributions, the Rothschilds faced persistent and often virulent anti-Semitic sentiment. You witness how their immense wealth, their international reach, and their discreet operations fueled a growing wave of conspiracy theories. Accusations of a Jewish cabal controlling governments and economies began to circulate, often portraying them as shadowy figures manipulating events from behind the scenes for their own nefarious purposes. Their practice of lending to multiple governments, regardless of their political alignment, was twisted into evidence of their disloyalty and a desire for global domination. This is a crucial part of their awful legacy. They became the primary target for anti-Semitic tropes that conflated Jewish identity with avarice and manipulative power. Historians still debate the extent to which the Rothschilds' unique business model inadvertently provided fodder for anti-Semitic narratives, or if their success simply made them a convenient target for pre-existing prejudices. The Rothschild family also continued their practice of intermarriage within the family to maintain control of their vast fortune and ensure secrecy. You observe the common occurrence of cousins marrying cousins, keeping the wealth and business secrets firmly within the family circle. While this strengthened their financial cohesion, it also contributed to the perception of them as an insular, secretive group, further fueling suspicion and conspiracy theories. It's like a corporate merger that also happens to be a family reunion, making it impossible to tell where the business ends and the family begins. By the mid-19th century, the Rothschilds had financed empires, built railways, and influenced the course of European economic development. They were peerless in their financial power, capable of raising vast sums of capital for governments quicker than any other entity. Their private residences were palatial, their art collections immense, and their social standing, though often challenged by lingering prejudice, was undeniable among the European elite. However, the very scale of their success and their unconventional methods left them vulnerable to criticism and calumny. The awful legacy of the Rothschild family during this period is inextricably linked to the burgeoning anti-Semitism of the 19th century. Their wealth and their internationalism made them an easy target for those seeking to scapegoat a powerful, yet minority, group for the complexities of modern capitalism and geopolitical shifts. They became a convenient symbol for anxieties about financial power and globalization, paving the way for even more insidious conspiracy theories that would dog their name for generations to come. You now delve into the murky depths of the conspiracy theories that have relentlessly plagued the Rothschild family, a shadow that has clung to their name even more persistently than their vast wealth. This isn't just about financial success anymore, it's about the awful legacy of how their power became distorted and weaponized, making them the unwitting central figures in a global narrative of manipulation and control. You feel the insidious spread of these ideas, whispering through pamphlets, speeches, and later, the internet, shaping public perception in deeply damaging ways. The roots of these conspiracy theories are complex, but they often intertwine three key elements: the Rothschilds' immense wealth, their Jewish identity, and their unprecedented international reach. You observe how their extraordinary success, particularly during and after the Napoleonic Wars, was simply too vast for many to comprehend through conventional means. In a world where nation-states were still defining themselves, the idea of a single family operating across borders, lending to multiple governments, and seemingly profiting from chaos seemed unnatural, even sinister. The most pervasive and damaging of these theories centers on the idea of the Rothschilds as secret masters of the world. You hear the accusations they control governments from behind the scenes, manipulate stock markets for their own gain, start wars to profit from them, and even dictate the policies of entire nations. The Waterloo story, whether entirely accurate or not, becomes a powerful parable for this narrative: a single family, supposedly through cunning and deception, gaining an unfair advantage over the entire British Empire. This narrative suggests that democratic processes are merely a facade, and the true power rests in the hands of a shadowy, unelected financial elite. It's like imagining a global puppet show where the Rothschilds pull all the strings, while the rest of the US are just dancing to their tune. A crucial and undeniably awful aspect of these theories is their deep connection to anti-Semitism. You witness how the Rothschilds, as a prominent Jewish family, became a convenient scapegoat for anxieties about capitalism, globalization, and perceived threats to national sovereignty. Anti-Semitic propagandists across Europe and later the world, from the 19th century onwards, seized upon the Rothschilds as the embodiment of an alleged international Jewish conspiracy. Pamphlets, cartoons, and speeches depicted them as hook-nosed, greedy figures, pulling strings and plotting to undermine Christian nations. This rhetoric often conflated their banking activities with ancient anti-Jewish stereotypes about usury and deceit. The infamous text, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a fabricated anti-Semitic hoax purporting to reveal a Jewish plan for global domination, found fertile ground in environments where Rothschild conspiracy theories already flourished. You see how this document, despite being proven a forgery, was repeatedly used to bolster accusations against the Rothschilds, linking their financial power to a wider, malevolent scheme. This fusion of financial conspiracy and racial hatred created a potent, toxic narrative that has endured for centuries, twisting their legacy into something truly horrifying. Historians still debate the extent to which the Rothschilds' actual secrecy and their aversion to public scrutiny inadvertently contributed to the fertile ground for these conspiracy theories, or if they were simply victims of a virulent, pre-existing anti-Semitism that needed a powerful target. You observe how these conspiracy theories have evolved over time, adapting to new historical contexts. In the 19th century, they targeted the Rothschilds' influence over monarchies and the burgeoning industrial economy. In the 20th century, they shifted to include accusations of controlling central banks, manipulating wars, and orchestrating global political events. In the modern era, you find them permeating online forums, social media, and extremist narratives, often without any direct reference to the Rothschilds themselves, but still invoking the archetypal globalist or cabal figure they came to represent. It's like a virulent strain of a virus that mutates to survive in new environments. The very success of the Rothschilds, their ability to remain a private, family-controlled enterprise for so long, inadvertently fueled the mystique and suspicion, unlike publicly traded corporations. Their internal workings were largely opaque, fostering an image of impenetrable secrecy. You feel the human tendency to fill information vacuums with speculation, especially when vast power and wealth are involved. The fact that they often preferred to operate discreetly, avoiding the spotlight, only intensified the belief that they had something to hide, an intriguing yet dark detail of their public image is the sheer volume of negative caricatures produced about them. Particularly in the 19th century, these often depicted them as grotesque, oversized figures, literally crushing nations under their feet or pulling the strings of world leaders. These visual representations, widely disseminated in newspapers and pamphlets, were incredibly effective in shaping public opinion and embedding the image of the Rothschilds as manipulative overlords in the popular imagination. This awful legacy of conspiracy theories has had real-world consequences. The Rothschilds themselves faced social ostracism and prejudice despite their immense wealth and noble titles. More broadly, these theories contributed to an atmosphere of anti-Jewish sentiment that had devastating historical outcomes. Culminating in the Holocaust in the 20th century, while the Rothschilds were not the sole target of anti-Semitism, they were often its most prominent symbol, used to validate broader prejudices, despite the wealth of historical evidence disproving these elaborate plots. The conspiracy theories persist. You realize that their longevity lies not in their factual basis, but in their psychological appeal. They offer simple explanations for complex global events, providing a convenient scapegoat and a sense of understanding in a confusing world. The Rothschilds, for all their power, became victims of their own success, forever entangled in a web of manufactured fear and resentment. Their legacy is thus doubly complicated, one of undeniable financial genius and innovation, but also one of profound historical victimhood at the hands of persistent, baseless accusations. You now pivot from the shadowy realm of conspiracy theories to a more tangible, yet still complex, aspect of the Rothschild legacy, their extensive philanthropy and patronage. This isn't a simple tale of selfless giving. It's a nuanced story where immense wealth, social responsibility, and the desire for acceptance often intertwined. You feel the tension between the public perception of the Rothschilds as avaricious manipulators and the very real, widespread charitable endeavors they undertook. This duality forms an awful legacy in itself, as their good deeds were often overshadowed or dismissed by pervasive prejudice from their earliest days. The Rothschilds understood the importance of giving back to the communities from which they arose, particularly within the Jewish community. You observe Meyer Amschel Rothschild in Frankfurt, establishing synagogues, supporting Jewish schools, and providing relief for the poor within the ghetto. This tradition of Jewish communal support was deeply ingrained in the family ethos, a fundamental aspect of their identity and responsibility. You see them funding hospitals, orphanages, and educational institutions, often anonymously or discreetly, reflecting a traditional Jewish approach to charity known as tzedakah. As their wealth grew exponentially and their influence spread across Europe, their philanthropic efforts expanded dramatically. You witness the various branches of the family, each in their respective cities, engaging in wide-ranging charitable activities. In London, Paris, Vienna, and Naples, they endowed hospitals, built schools, and established foundations to support the arts and sciences. This wasn't just small-scale giving. These were often significant, transformative projects that benefited thousands of people, regardless of their religious affiliation. However, a crucial and somewhat awful detail of their philanthropy is that it often seemed to be a response to the constant barrage of anti-Semitic accusations and the social barriers they faced. Despite their wealth, the Rothschilds were still, in many parts of Europe, seen as outsiders, as other their charitable endeavors, while genuinely benevolent, also served as a means to gain social acceptance, to demonstrate their civic responsibility, and to counter the negative stereotypes that relentlessly dog their name. You feel the subtle pressure on them to constantly prove their worth, to use their wealth to legitimize their position in societies that often viewed them with suspicion. It's like being forced to throw the biggest, most generous party just to prove you belong on the guest list. Their medical philanthropy is particularly noteworthy. You observe their significant contributions to hospitals and medical research, driven by a genuine concern for public health. In Paris, James de Rothschild founded the Rothschild Hospital, providing high-quality medical care to all. Regardless of their background, other family members funded research into diseases and built sanatoriums. This focus on health and well-being was a progressive stance for the era and had a tangible positive impact on countless lives. The Rothschilds were also major patrons of the arts and culture, often going beyond mere financial support to actively collect and preserve masterworks. You see their magnificent private art collections, housed in their opulent mansions, which rivaled those of royalty. Many of these collections, or significant portions of them, were later bequeathed to public museums, ensuring that these artistic treasures could be enjoyed by everyone. Their passion for horticulture also led to the creation of magnificent gardens, many of which are now open to the public, showcasing a different kind of beauty and generosity. Despite these extensive contributions, the perception of the Rothschilds as purely self-serving financiers often persisted. You hear the cynical whispers that their philanthropy was merely a calculated public relations exercise, a way to whitewash their perceived ruthless business practices. This dismissive attitude, rooted in deep-seated prejudice, is part of their awful legacy. Their efforts to do good were often undermined by an ingrained narrative that refused to see them as anything other than manipulators. Historians still debate the extent to which Rothschild philanthropy was driven by genuine altruism versus a pragmatic desire for social acceptance and reputation management. The truth is likely a blend of both, as is often the case with powerful figures. An intriguing aspect of their charitable work, though less publicized, was their quiet support for Jewish communities facing persecution. You see them discreetly lobbying governments, providing financial aid to refugees, and supporting efforts to alleviate the suffering of Jews caught in pogroms or discriminatory laws. This behind-the-scenes diplomacy and financial assistance, often conducted without public fanfare, was a vital lifeline for many during tumultuous times. It was a quieter, more personal form of their broader commitment to their heritage. The Rothschilds also invested heavily in education. You witness their funding of schools, libraries, and universities, believing that access to knowledge was a key to progress and social mobility. Their contributions helped establish institutions that provided opportunities for countless individuals who might otherwise have been denied access to quality education. This focus on intellectual development and social uplift demonstrates a forward-thinking approach to philanthropy that went beyond mere relief efforts. By the turn of the 20th century, the Rothschilds' philanthropic endeavors had spanned generations and touched countless lives across Europe. They built hospitals, supported the arts, funded scientific research, and consistently aided their own Jewish community. Yet, the persistent shadow of conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic prejudice meant that this legacy of generosity was often overlooked or deliberately misrepresented. The awful legacy of the Rothschilds' philanthropy is that even their most benevolent actions could not fully escape the damaging narrative woven by their detractors. While their wealth allowed for monumental acts of charity, the world often chose to focus on the darker, unproven accusations of manipulation rather than acknowledge their tangible contributions to public welfare and cultural enrichment. Their story reminds us that even great acts of generosity can struggle to overcome deeply ingrained biases, leaving a complex, often misunderstood, legacy of both immense good and profound calumny. You now shift your focus to a truly pivotal, and for some, an awful legacy of the Rothschild family, their profound and often controversial involvement in Zionism and the establishment of the State of Israel. This isn't just about financial support, it's about a complex interplay of philanthropy, political maneuvering, and a deep-seated commitment to a homeland for the Jewish people. A commitment that would shape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East for generations to come. You feel the weight of history, the deep emotional currents, and the immense global significance of their actions. The roots of Rothschild involvement in Zionism trace back to the late 19th century, as anti-Semitism escalated across Europe, culminating in violent pogroms in Russia and a renewed wave of discrimination elsewhere. You recall the pervasive conspiracy theories that targeted the Rothschilds, often linking their wealth to anti-Jewish narratives. This environment fostered a growing desire among many Jews for a safe haven, a homeland where they could escape persecution. This yearning gave rise to Zionism, the movement for Jewish self-determination and the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. Their ancestral homeland, the Rothschild family, particularly the English branch, became crucial patrons of this burgeoning movement. You observe the figure of Baron Edmund James de Rothschild, 1845-1934, from the French branch of the family, often referred to as the father of the Yishuv, the pre-state Jewish community in Palestine. He was not a political Zionist in the mold of Theodor Herzl, but a practical, philanthropic one. You see him pouring immense personal wealth into establishing and supporting early Jewish settlements in Palestine. He purchased vast tracts of land, funded agricultural ventures like vineyards and orange groves, built schools, hospitals, and synagogues, and even provided housing and stipends for settlers. His support was vital, providing the financial backbone for a movement that initially lacked significant resources. You feel the immense practical challenges faced by these early pioneers: the harsh climate, the often infertile land, the lack of infrastructure, and the resistance from the Ottoman authorities and local Arab populations, without Baron Edmund's consistent and extensive funding. Many of these early settlements would likely have failed. It's like watching a single benefactor quietly laying the very first bricks of a new, ambitious nation, often with little public recognition. However, This profound involvement also came with an awful legacy of paternalism and controversy. You observe that Baron Edmund, while generous, often exercised a very hands-on, almost autocratic control over the settlements he funded. He appointed administrators to manage the communities, dictated agricultural practices, and sometimes clashed with the settlers over their self-governance. You feel the tension between the settlers' desire for independence and the baron's desire for efficiency and control, creating a dynamic that was often seen as dictatorial. This financial dependence, while necessary for survival, sometimes stifled the very self-reliance the Zionist movement sought to foster. Historians still debate whether Baron Edmund's philanthropic approach was ultimately beneficial or detrimental to the long-term development of the Zionist movement. Weighing his crucial financial support against his perceived paternalism and control, the political aspect of Rothschild involvement intensified with Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild, 1868-1937, of the English branch. You witness his deep commitment to the Zionist cause. Particularly during World War I, he becomes a key contact for Zionist leaders, including Chaim Weizmann, lobbying the British government for support. This culminates in the pivotal moment of the Balfour Declaration in 1917. You see a formal letter from Arthur Balfour, the British Foreign Secretary, addressed directly to Lord Rothschild, declaring British support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. This declaration is a monumental turning point for the Zionist movement, giving it official recognition from a major world power, the Rothschilds' influence in London, their close ties to the British establishment, and their reputation undoubtedly played a significant role in securing this crucial political statement. You feel the immense hope and excitement among Zionists worldwide upon its publication, a promise of a future homeland after centuries of diaspora. However, the Balfour Declaration also carries an awful legacy of complexity and controversy. It implicitly recognized the rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, a vague clause that would later become a source of immense conflict with the Arab population. You sense the seeds of future conflict being sown even in this moment of Zionist triumph. A declaration that promised a homeland to one people in a land already inhabited by another. Without their explicit consent, the Rothschilds, by being the direct recipients and facilitators of this declaration, became inextricably linked to these future geopolitical challenges. It's like planting a beautiful rose, but knowing there are thorns buried deep in its roots. Throughout the Mandate period 1920 to 1948, as Britain administered Palestine, Rothschild family members continued their financial and political support for Jewish settlement. You observe them contributing to institutions, land purchases, and infrastructure projects, quietly yet consistently providing critical backing for the burgeoning Jewish community. Their name became synonymous with the financial strength behind the Zionist enterprise, an intriguing and often overlooked detail about the Rothschilds' relationship with Zionism is the internal family debate about the movement. Not all Rothschilds were equally enthusiastic about political Zionism. Some feared that the establishment of a Jewish state would exacerbate anti-Semitism in Europe, and they preferred to focus their efforts on integrating Jews into their existing national societies through philanthropy. This internal divergence highlights the complex and sometimes conflicting views within the family itself regarding their Jewish identity and their role in the world. By the mid-20th century, the Rothschild family had played an indispensable role in making the dream of a Jewish homeland a reality. Their financial contributions laid the groundwork for early settlements, and their political influence helped secure crucial international recognition. When the State of Israel was declared in 1948, it was, in part, a testament to the decades of their unwavering support. However, the awful legacy of their involvement in Zionism is profoundly intertwined with the ongoing Arab-Israeli conflict. Their immense financial backing and political lobbying made them direct participants in a process that resulted in the displacement of Palestinians and decades of violent struggle. While their intentions were to provide a safe haven for persecuted Jews, the consequences were complex and often tragic for others. Their name, for many, became associated not just with Jewish liberation, but also with the painful realities of a contested land. The Rothschilds' legacy in Zionism is therefore a double-edged sword, a story of crucial support for a persecuted people, but also one deeply implicated in a conflict that continues to shape the modern world. Their name, once symbolizing global financial power, now also evokes the contentious and deeply emotional history of the Middle East, a testament to the far-reaching and sometimes unintended consequences of even the most well-intentioned actions by powerful families. You now fast-forward through the tumultuous 20th century, a period of immense global upheaval, world wars, economic depressions, and profound political shifts, and observe how the Rothschild family navigates these seismic changes. This era brings new challenges to their vast, interconnected empire, and forces them to adapt, sometimes painfully, while confronting the persistent shadow of their awful legacy of public perception. You feel the relentless march of time, witnessing how even the most powerful families must bend or break under the weight of historical forces. The two world wars 1914, 1918, and 1939, 1945 profoundly impacted the Rothschild network. You recall their historical practice of financing all sides of a conflict? However, the nature of 20th century warfare, with its total mobilization and heightened nationalism, made this increasingly difficult. You witness the physical destruction of some of their European properties and the severe disruption of international finance, the rise of state-controlled economies, and the collapse of the old European monarchies, which had been their primary clients, forced them to adapt their business model. Their influence, while still substantial, became less overt, less direct. Compared to the 19th century, when they were the de facto central bankers of Europe, a particularly awful aspect of this period is the impact of the Holocaust on the Rothschild family and their extensive art collections. As a prominent Jewish family, they were specifically targeted by the Nazi regime. You see their properties in Austria and Germany confiscated, their assets seized, and many family members forced to flee or endure persecution. Their priceless art collections, accumulated over generations, were looted and dispersed by the Nazis, while many pieces were eventually recovered after the war. The experience was a stark and horrifying reminder of the virulent anti-Semitism that continued to dog their name. Despite their contributions to society, it's like watching a personal nightmare unfold on a global stage, proving that even immense wealth offers no ultimate protection against hatred. Following World War II, the global financial landscape changed dramatically. The rise of the United States as a superpower, the Bretton Woods system, and the increasing dominance of large, publicly traded corporations and multinational banks presented new challenges to the traditional, family-controlled Rothschild model. You observe their shift from being primary lenders to governments to focusing more on private banking, asset management, and mergers and acquisitions. They retained their prestige and expertise, but their direct overarching influence on global finance became less visible. The 20th century also saw a gradual reduction in the direct intermarriage within the family. While the practice of cousins marrying cousins helped consolidate wealth and secrets in earlier centuries, by the modern era, more Rothschilds began to marry outside the family, reflecting changing social norms and a more diverse range of interests. This diluted, to some extent, the intense familial cohesion that had been a hallmark of their early success, though the core family identity remained strong and intriguing, yet often overlooked. Detail is the Rothschilds' involvement in the natural resources industry during the 20th century. You see them making significant investments in mining operations, particularly in metals like copper, and later, oil. This diversification beyond traditional government bonds and railways shows their continued adaptability and their understanding of emerging global markets. Even as the world shifted away from the old aristocratic order, it's a quiet testament to their ability to spot where the next wave of wealth was forming. The persistent shadow of conspiracy theories continued to haunt the Rothschild name throughout the 20th century and into the 21st. You recall how their historical wealth and perceived secrecy made them a ready target for anti-Semitic propaganda, particularly during periods of social and economic unrest, even as their influence became more specialized. The popular imagination continued to project upon them an almost mythical power to control world events. The rise of the internet in the late 20th century provided a new, unmoderated platform for these theories to spread, reaching a wider audience than ever before, often divorced from any historical context or factual basis. This is a truly awful legacy, the inability to escape a manufactured narrative. Despite centuries of evidence to the contrary, historians still debate the best methods to combat such deeply ingrained conspiracy theories, noting their resilience even in the face of overwhelming disproof. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the Rothschild financial empire underwent further restructuring and consolidation. You observe the various independent family banks in London, Paris, and other cities gradually merging and consolidating operations, reflecting the globalization of financial markets and the need for greater scale. While still a private, family-controlled entity, their structure evolved to meet modern demands. They remain prominent in fields like mergers and acquisitions, wealth management, and strategic advisory services. Their philanthropic efforts also continued, often through dedicated foundations that support education, health, arts, and environmental causes. You see their continued commitment to preserving historical sites, supporting scientific research, and contributing to various charitable causes. Often with a focus on impact and sustainability, this continuation of their philanthropic tradition underscores a consistent element of their legacy. Even as their business model adapted, the awful legacy of the Rothschild family in the modern era is perhaps the most complex. While they no longer exert the direct, overt influence on governments that they did in the 19th century, their name continues to be synonymous with immense, almost conspiratorial wealth and power. They are a family that revolutionized finance, contributed to industry, and supported monumental causes, including the very idea of a Jewish homeland. Yet, they remained stubbornly resistant to being viewed simply as a highly successful, innovative banking family. Their journey through the 20th century and into the 21st is a testament to their adaptability and endurance, but also to the enduring power of negative narratives in the long, unforgiving shadow of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that refuse to fade away. Their story continues to be one of undeniable historical impact, yet forever burdened by an awful and often unfair reputation. You now conclude your journey through the extraordinary and often controversial history of the Rothschild family. Reflecting on their enduring legacy in the 21st century, while their direct public influence has evolved, their impact on global finance, philanthropy, and even the very nature of wealth itself remains profound. You feel the subtle echoes of their pioneering spirit, even as the world around them has transformed beyond recognition, from the cramped ghetto where they began in the 21st century. The Rothschild financial empire continues to operate, albeit in a more consolidated and specialized form. You observe the various branches of the family's banking interests, particularly those in London and Paris, merging and restructuring to form a unified entity like Rothschild & Co. This move reflects the demands of modern global finance, where scale and integration are key. They remain prominent players in areas such as mergers and acquisitions advisory, private wealth management, and corporate banking. Their clientele often includes governments, large corporations, and ultra-high net worth individuals, continuing their tradition of serving the financial needs of the powerful. However, Their role is no longer one of being the sole, indispensable financiers of empires. As it was in the 19th century, you see them operating within a highly competitive global financial landscape, alongside numerous other multinational banks and financial institutions. Their wealth, while still substantial, is no longer considered unique in the context of modern billionaires and sovereign wealth funds. This shift means their influence is now more specialized, more discreet, and less overtly central to global events than in their heyday. It's like a once monopolistic company now operating as a highly respected, but one of many, boutique firms. The awful legacy of the Rothschilds' past continues to manifest in the persistent shadow of conspiracy theories. You recall how their immense wealth, Jewish identity, and international reach made them targets for anti-Semitic narratives for centuries? In the age of the internet and social media, these theories, often recycled and amplified, find new life and reach wider audiences than ever before, often detached from any historical context. You witness how the Rothschild name is still invoked in discussions of alleged global cabals, deep state operations, and control over world governments, central banks, and media. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, this relentless misrepresentation is perhaps the most painful part of their legacy, constantly undermining their achievements and perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Their extensive philanthropic work also continues into the modern era. You observe the various Rothschild foundations and trusts around the world, supporting a wide array of causes: education, arts and culture, medical research, social welfare, and environmental conservation. Their commitment to preserving historical sites, endowing museums, and supporting scientific innovation remains a consistent thread throughout their history. This quiet, often behind the scenes, generosity stands in stark contrast to the sensationalist narratives spun by their detractors, highlighting the complex and often misunderstood nature of their public image. It's a reminder that even immense wealth can be directed towards genuine public good, even if that good is frequently overlooked. The Rothschilds' historical involvement in Zionism also remains a sensitive and often contentious part of their legacy. You recall their crucial financial and political support for the early Zionist movement and the establishment of Israel. This contribution is celebrated by many within the Jewish community and in Israel, recognizing their indispensable role in realizing the dream of a homeland. However, for others, particularly among Palestinians and their supporters, their name is inextricably linked to the displacement and ongoing conflict in the Middle East, casting a long, complex shadow over their historical impact. An intriguing aspect of the modern Rothschild family is their continued commitment to privacy and discretion. While their ancestors reveled in public displays of wealth and influence at least once they gained noble titles, the contemporary family generally maintains a much lower public profile. This discretion, while understandable given the history of scrutiny and prejudice, sometimes inadvertently feeds the very conspiracy theories they wish to avoid. As a lack of transparency can be misinterpreted as secrecy, the Rothschilds have also left an undeniable mark on the very structure of modern finance. You reflect on how their innovative banking practices in the 19th century, from pioneering government bond markets to establishing transnational financial networks and intelligence gathering, laid the groundwork for many aspects of today's global financial system. They demonstrated the power of international capital, the importance of information, and the potential for a single family to exert influence on a scale previously unimaginable as the 21st century unfolds. The Rothschild family continues to adapt, innovate, and contribute to various sectors, both financial and philanthropic. Their influence is no longer that of the all-encompassing, near-mythical power brokers of the 19th century. Instead, it is a more diffused, specialized, and, for the most part, quieter presence within the global economy. The awful legacy of the Rothschild family is a tapestry woven with threads of extraordinary success, profound innovation and persistent calumny. It's a story of how a family, rising from the humblest beginnings, reshaped global finance, influenced nations, and endured centuries of prejudice. Yet, their very success made them the unwilling symbols of dark narratives, forever linking their name to accusations of shadowy manipulation. Their journey from a Frankfurt ghetto to a global financial presence is a testament to human ambition and resilience. But it also serves as a stark reminder of the corrosive power of envy, fear, and enduring prejudice. The whispers of financial giants and ancient conspiracies now begin to fade, the intricate ledgers and vast fortunes dissolving into the quiet hum of the fan. You drift away from the grand banking houses in the shadow of persistent whispers, leaving the Rothschilds to their complex legacy, their influence both profound and profoundly misunderstood. The long, winding narrative of their family gently concludes, allowing you to settle into the peaceful depths of slumber. All the complexity, all the controversy, now melts into the quiet night,